about improving processes or your efficiencies, or it's about getting into new products, or it's about enhancing innovation. So we clearly see a resonance amongst each of these elements from the top management, and the adoption by companies across industries is significantly increasing.
Anjali, tell us which sectors in India are we seeing the most interesting, you define that, the most interesting growth in?
So clearly, the sector which we found the maximum adoption is the sector that you belong to, which is media. So if you look at some of the use cases that are being created or being used in media, it could be content creation, it could be writing scripts, it could be advertising creation, it could be analyzing user preferences, delivering personalized content. All of those are areas that we are seeing media companies really adopt to Gen AI. I think the related industry, if I talk about technology, product companies, IT-enabled services companies, they are also seeing a large adoption. And one of the biggest use cases is writing code. It's testing code. Yeah. It's your software development lifecycle documentation. So all of these somewhat mundane tasks are being automated using Gen AI. The other area that we really found interesting in our discussions, not just the study, is the government of India. I think the government of India is doing a fantastic job in terms of adopting Gen AI. So for example, providing citizen services. There's a chatbot that they use called Jugalbandi. So if you're a farmer in Haryana, you can actually listen to the government speak in your native language. And it's a chatbot, so you don't even have to be literate. You can just ask questions.
Interesting. So clearly, Anjali, there are lots of use cases, lots of ways in which Chat GPT or in fact Gen AI in a sense can sort out our life. But one can't ignore the flip side to that as well. Also, one of the Gen AIs that we talk about is deepfake, an outcome of that. Just as an example, how do you see that, the downside of Gen AI?
So, one of the ways we found it helpful to think about AI and Gen AI. So think about it as a new employee. As you hire a new employee and you train her in your organization about your policies, about the work that she has to do, and you don't take her outcome at face value. There is somebody who's training her, there's somebody who's mentoring her, there is somebody who's looking at her output and then saying, this change has to be made. Then you constantly keep on sending her for training. Gen AI is exactly like that. You have to treat those models like an employee that needs coaching, that needs mentoring, that needs training, that needs fine-tuning. But once you've done that in your own environment, with your own data, with the right set of guardrails, I think the benefits far outweigh the challenges that we are seeing.
Anjani, thank you. Anjani is almost repeating, Sonal, the advice you were talking about a little earlier, how you need to use ChatGPT, AI, generative AI as assistive. Let's move on from this now to the other big question around Gen AI. You often hear one of these very loud opinions, which is Gen AI will steal the jobs of artists and creatives. So to understand more about this way of thinking, we thought we'd go over to the digital creator Prateek Arora. Prateek uses generative AI to create these incredible Indo-futuristic, that's how he describes it, these incredible worlds. So let's just go over to him. Hi Prateek, good morning. Prateek, tell us maybe the best way to describe your work, though it's something quite unseen, I think, for a lot of our audiences, but maybe we could describe it as Indian futuristic comics. Tell us, what were your inspirations? How did you create this almost very unique amalgamation?
One of the key inspirations was how, let's say, Stan Lee back in the 60s in New York crystallized this whole moment around like Marvel Comics and created so many sort of memorable stories and iconic characters and a community around that. And I realized that we don't really have that in India, but also the answer can't be exactly like comic books because we don't have that kind of culture of comic books in India, at least anymore. Maybe the last time we had it was like Raj Comics. So it had been a while of thinking about, okay, if you like this kind of storytelling, you think more people can possibly like it, but you have to find a different way to do it because it's not going to happen in the mainstream way of getting like a film produced or a or a series done even after OTT, because it just feels so new to everyone. So I think the understanding was that you need to find almost like a sort of a different pathway, and take some inspiration from tech and how startups do it and how they kind of incubate new things. And ultimately it was like, okay, I needed a new medium to tell this kind of story in a way that I can do it almost online and kind of build my own community around it. And around that time, when I learned of the sort of existence of AI tools, specifically something called Midjourney, I was like, this could really be it. So let me try. And that's really where it began. That's really where it began for me.
All right, Prateek, Midjourney clearly is everybody's favorite at the moment. But for our viewers, tell us, how exactly does art work with AI? Are there prompts? Is it like writing a novel, giving a prompt to Gen AI to visualize a world you want to see? How does it work?
That's a great question, honestly, a very relevant question, and also a popular understanding, or rather misunderstanding, that it's, the machine's doing all the work. My perspective is pretty sort of simple and clear that, look, it's a tool, like a camera is a tool or Photoshop is a tool. What I think is uncomfortable to people is that it's a new kind of tool and you can't really one-to-one compare it to anything that has existed so far. For me personally, it starts with a story. It's always started with a story that, look, there is a story that I want to tell. There is a character I want to bring into, like, I've imagined I want to bring into like visual media, or there's a world that I want to build around a concept or a theme that I like, and it starts with that. So the image generation part of it is sort of one part of it, right? Before that, you have to like do a lot of thinking about what you're really trying to say with it. Then once you figure out, okay, this is my story, you bring it into a sort of image generation tool like Midjourney, where it does, in the most elemental way, yes, you give it a text prompt, and then it generates an image based on that text prompt. But two things. One, that text prompt, even though I don't think it's solidified into its own skill yet, but it's starting to, because the output, and I'm not even saying quality, but just subjective output that people are getting from the same softwares is like dramatically different. So there's definitely something else going on there. How I think of it is like, it's like almost like being a writer's advantage is there, because you're writing a short script, essentially. You're writing a script for an image. So if you say that that's not valuable, it's like saying, hey, you should make a film directly from on the set and the screenplay is not valuable, right? Like there's a lot of thinking that goes into the moment before you generate.
Prateek, tell us, there is this sort of nihilistic way almost of thinking that AI will take away artists' jobs. You're an artist, you use AI. Tell us, how do you see this way of thinking?
Okay, so I think that's again, important question with no simple answer. At least there's no consensus among the broad artistic community on what they think about it. Many points of view. Here's my point of view, right? I think AI is a new medium. It is a new medium, as like photography or filmmaking was a new medium, and neither of those replaced painting, for example, because just a great example of this is that every single time there is a really starkly new way of making art, there's a lot of worry around it, and there's enough historical evidence for it, right? So for example, when the camera came out for the first time, there was a bit of a panic in the painting community, because they were like, okay, where a lot of painters were employed to make portraits at that point in time, but then they were like, okay, now we don't get to make any portraits. And sure, some of that happened, but also, and if you go back and read things from the time, it also, in some ways, and some people say that it freed up painting beyond its purely utilitarian uses and led to many art movements that came out as a response to the creation of photography, including like Impressionism, right? When they didn't have to just capture reality exactly as it is, it was liberating. So for me, AI art, AI imaging, AI as a creative medium is a new medium, which is not painting, is not photography, even though some of it may look like that. It's a whole new medium, right? And I think we're still figuring out the semantics and how to define or describe it exactly. That said, when you come to the industry context, right? Now there are certain specific use cases where AI is already starting to disrupt the current like production workflows or creation workflows, and that is a valid concern.
Prateek, a really engaging conversation, but I want to understand this. Then, would it be fair to say that what you do with, what artists do with Gen AI is sort of asking them to produce what's really going inside your brain? For example, your theme seems to be Indo-futuristic, so to say. That's really your universe. Would that be fair to say? Is that how you're building it?
Okay, so I think a lot of it is just very directly inspired by things I'm seeing around me. I know that science fiction is supposed to be futuristic, but I think it's even more interesting when you kind of use it to talk about what's going on right now. And to me, the biggest story, or one of the biggest stories of just our life and times, especially in India, is that technology is like permeating every part of life and changing everything, especially since like let's say the big geo moment that happened a few years ago, and like hundreds of million people have come online. Yet we're not seeing, we're seeing so many stories about all the changes in India getting told in so many great ways, but we're not seeing the story of technology being told almost at all, right? Either in a more directly realistic way or in a more imaginative fictional way, right? And I think both are important. So I think it was about, hey, I'm seeing all of this interesting change around me, and then there's this new visual medium that I've kind of stumbled into. So maybe that speaks to me. So maybe I can use it to talk about that stuff, because it doesn't seem like we really are talking about that stuff. So that's one. And second, I think it's also just a lifelong love for science fiction and a desire to make it find acceptance in India broadly as pop culture, and more specifically in like Mumbai or the other centers of entertainment in the country. So we were also driven by that objective of how do you make this genre that so far people say feels like foreign or alien or not Indian enough, feel like something that came from like the ground up, versus something that was imposed by like some major conglomerate and is derivative of something we've seen in the West, right? So it was really driven by a desire to like find that texture of like Indian sci-fi.
Prateek, thank you for joining us and bringing us all of these insights this early in the morning. That creative Indian flavor, we love that point. Okay, with that creative start to the morning, from AI-generated art, we're now going to take you to a human artist on the other side. We're going to introduce you to a miniature artist. This is Hitendra Sakya. That's coming up after the break.
Promises that Rishi Sunak made. He had set out 5 promises. The first was halving inflation, and on that score the government has done well. Rishi Sunak clearly has done well. Inflation has come down, but at a cost, because growth has stalled. The economy has gone into recession, and that is because the interest rates have gone up. Borrowing has become difficult. Growth therefore is not easy. Investments are not easy. So the first achievement has come at the cost of the second. He had said that debt will come down. That has come down to an extent, but it's still running very high at close to 100% of GDP. The 2 other promises, that NHS waiting lists would be cut, that clearly has not happened. Sunak acknowledged that in an interview earlier this year. And then further, the last, that a stop to the small boats bringing those immigrants. The record there has been patchy. The number this year is slightly above the number last year, but the number last year was lower than in the preceding year. So a patchy record really for the Conservative government, and the patchwork is not necessarily particularly flattering for Rishi Sunak. This now is going to be an election where the Labour will have to make a very heavy swing in its favour if it is to form government. That's not necessarily going to be easy, even though it is ahead in the opinion polls. The last time the Labour Party led by Tony Blair won, it recorded a massive swing, and this time the Labour Party will have to record a swing matching that, if not better. And that is quite a big ask. Labour leaders have been conditional, they have been careful in their promises. Keir Starmer has been saying that there's a lot of work to do.
Welcome back. It's now time to take you through stories from India and across the globe. Europe is setting a global standard with its landmark AI law. Starting next month, the EU's Comprehensive AI Act will take effect, emphasizing trust, transparency, and accountability. This contrasts with the US lighter approach and China's focus on social stability and control. The law aims to address concerns like misinformation and copyright issues while fostering innovation.
A new report warns that nearly 1 in 10 properties owned by top real estate investment trusts in the Asia-Pacific region could face high risk from climate change. This is particularly in coastal areas. Properties suffering annual damage of more than 1% of their total replacement value were deemed high risk. Now, the report highlights potential damage from floods and fires, which could lower property values and increase insurance costs.
NASA again delayed the Boeing debut flight of its Starliner capsule so engineers can spend more time evaluating a helium leak in the spacecraft's propulsion system. The launch, previously set for the 25th of May, is now on hold with the next possible launch date under discussion with the two long-time test pilots aboard. The mission will mark Starliner's final benchmark test before NASA certifies the spacecraft for routine crewed missions to and from the ISS.
A recent study by Harvard scientists suggests that a daily spoonful of olive oil could significantly reduce the risk of dying from dementia. The findings add to the growing body of research on the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet.
A startling new study has found tiny plastic shards in human testicles. As part of the study, human testicles contain microplastics and nanoplastics 3 times higher than animal tests and human placentas. This has raised serious concerns about the potential impact of microplastics on reproductive health. Researchers now urge further investigation to understand the implication of the same.
And tragedy struck. This story brings us home. Tragedy struck the Malappuram district of Kerala, where a 5-year-old girl died from a very rare, deadly brain-eating amoeba infection. The child had been battling an infection that is actually caused by this amoeba. It's found in fresh, warm water in environments.
All right, and coming up next is a package that we've got from the Australian researchers that are turning used sort of coffee grounds into a material that can be added to concrete to make it much stronger. Here's a report.
Your morning cup of coffee could help the planet. That's the promise of one Australian university that's transforming used coffee grounds into more sustainable concrete. They say the process could potentially lower greenhouse gas emissions. The researchers at RMIT University are heating the coffee grounds to over 650 degrees Fahrenheit in an oxygen-free chamber to create a substance called biochar. They claim biochar can replace up to 15% of the sand used in concrete and make it 30% stronger.
We can leverage that to even reduce the cement content, which is a highly carbon-intensive material.
Rajiv Roychand is the lead researcher.
We anticipate that the whole 100% of coffee waste in Australia can be recycled into concrete applications.
Concrete production is responsible for around 7% of the world's CO2 emissions, according to the United Nations. Over 55 billion tons of sand and gravel are dug up each year, mostly for use in concrete. Its extraction is often environmentally destructive, and the UN says it's in increasingly short supply. This footpath was successfully made with coffee concrete. The researchers here are working with several construction and concrete companies and forming their own biochar company. They're also in talks with Starbucks to take its coffee grounds. Local coffee shop owner Tony Roussos says he would get in on the action too.
Fantastic. It's a very innovative idea, bring the cost of concrete down. And the materials, obviously there's a benefit to the environment for not using harsh chemicals and replacing it with coffee grounds as a natural product, easy to access. A lot of cafes could sell their coffee grounds, so end to end it's a great solution.
Roy-Chan says that eventually the technology could be used for more than just coffee.
In terms of real world, our focus is that we try to transform all of the organic waste that is ending up in landfills for this positive application in concrete. So we anticipate that about 60 to 70% we can divert from landfills into concrete applications.
It's not going to be some result taken for granted that Labour necessarily will win, and therefore indicating that there's work cut out for Labour in the weeks of campaigning ahead. But the campaigning is now on. The general election in Britain is now on.
Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July. This election will take place at a time when the world is more dangerous than it has been since the end of the Cold War. Putin's Russia is waging a brutal war in Ukraine and will not stop there if he succeeds. That war has also made it all too clear the risk to our energy security. In the Middle East, the forces of Islamist extremism threaten regional and ultimately global stability. These tensions are exploited by extremists who seek to undermine our values and divide our society here at home. China is looking to dominate the 21st century by stealing a lead in technology. And migration is being weaponized by hostile states to threaten the integrity of our borders. And these uncertain times call for a clear plan and bold action to chart a course to a secure future. You must choose in this election who has that plan, who is prepared to take the bold action necessary to secure a better future for our country and our children.
Britain will now go into a general election on Thursday, July the 4th. A surprise announcement coming from Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at 10 Downing Street, right here behind. A surprise announcement because most political pundits, the opposition and government leaders had been expecting an election to be announced for the autumn of this year, but not a surprise. Over the 24 hours or so preceding the announcement, everything had been building up to it. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak clearly was consulting colleagues. The Foreign Secretary David Cameron cut short his visit to Albania. Defence Secretary Shapps cancelled a visit to Lithuania. All cabinet members were advised to necessarily attend a meeting of the cabinet at Downing Street taking place on Wednesday afternoon. This now sets the scene for an election battle with the Conservatives trailing behind the opposition Labour Party. Labour have been a
Welcome back. So in the first half of our program, we talked to you about how AI is generating art, but now let's talk about an art form that remains sacred to humans, at least so far, and it requires absolute human precision. Let's meet our person of interest this morning. It's Hitendra Sakya, an art teacher by the day and a miniature artist later.
So almonds, rice grains, even a grain of dal. These have all been his canvases. He's joining us right now. Let's go over to him. हितेंद्र जी, गुड मॉर्निंग. हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए धन्यवाद. हितेंद्र जी, ये बताइए, एक चावल का दाना, एक बादाम, ये सब आपकी कैनवस बन चुकी हैं. आप बता सकते हैं आपने शुरू कैसे किया?
जैसे कि बादाम की बात करें तो मेरी मतलब घर में बैठे हुए थे बुआ जी के यहाँ से, मेरी बुआ जी की मतलब कजिन सिस्टर मेरी जो है प्रेमलता जी, तो उन्होंने रखी हुई थी बादाम. तो उन्होंने बोला, मतलब मेरा निकनेम कान्हा है, तो वो बोलती हैं कि इसके ऊपर कभी ट्राई करो. तो उसके नेक्स्ट डे ही मैंने उसके ऊपर महात्मा गांधी जी का पोर्ट्रेट मैंने बनाया था. फिर दीदी को दिखाया. उतना 2009 में उतना तो अच्छा नहीं था, लेकिन उसके बाद मैंने और भी पोर्ट्रेट्स किए. फिर कुछ समय बाद फिर मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट आने लगा कि अब तो करना ही है इसके ऊपर. तो फिर मैंने डिटेल्स में उसके ऊपर काम करना स्टार्ट किया. डेली करते करते प्रैक्टिस होती गई और वो अच्छा बनता गया.
जी, बट हितेंद्र जी ये बताइए कि जब आप इतनी छोटी छोटी चीज़ों पे पेंटिंग करते हैं तो एरर का तो कोई स्कोप नहीं होता होगा, ज़रा सी गलती और फिर से शुरुआत करनी पड़ती होगी।
नहीं, एक बार आपने अगर स्टार्ट किया तो फिर आपको फिनिश ही करना पड़ेगा, उसमें डिटेल्स कितनी जाना है, क्योंकि अगर आप एक पोर्ट्रेट बना रहे हो और जो बादाम होती है बहुत ही छोटी होती है ना, तो उसको आप जब आई ड्रॉ करोगे उसके ऊपर तो मेजरमेंट लेना ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट होता है। मेजरमेंट आप फेस का लोगे, बॉडी का लोगे, उसको बनाओगे, ड्रॉ करोगे, तो डिफिकल्ट तो ये होता है। लेकिन मेरा मानना है कि अगर आप किसी भी चीज के पीछे अगर पड़ जाओगे कि ये करना है तो वो पॉसिबल है और हो जाता है वो काम। फिर मतलब भगवान भी आपकी मदद करते हैं करने में।
बट इतने छोटे जैसे बादाम पे बनाना बहुत मुश्किल है। आपके लिए सबसे चैलेंजिंग क्या रहा है अभी तक बनाना?
मैंने चावल के दाने के ऊपर श्री अमिताभ बच्चन जी का पोर्ट्रेट बनाया था, और ये मैंने बनाया था 2012 में। मैं बादाम, चावल, दाल, जितने भी मतलब छोटी चीजें जिस पे लगता है लोगों को कि कुछ हो नहीं सकता है, उन सब चीजों के ऊपर मैं आर्ट वर्क बना चुका हूँ।
जी, तो अब ये बताइए कि आपने चावल कर लिया, दाल कर लिया, बादाम कर लिया, मैच बॉक्स भी कर लिया, अब नेक्स्ट किस चीज़ पे ट्राई करना चाहते हैं?
वैसे तो ऐसा कुछ नहीं, मैं पत्तियों के ऊपर भी करता हूँ, पेड़ से जो पत्तियां गिर जाती हैं उसके ऊपर भी आर्ट वर्क में करता हूँ। अभी कुछ ऐसा लगेगा कि कुछ चैलेंजिंग है जो मतलब कोई भी नहीं करता है, और जो मुझे मिलेगा वो मैं करता जाऊंगा। देखिए, मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि जो भी चीज़ हमें मिलती है, ऐसा लगता है कि ये वेस्ट नहीं है, हमें उनको उपयोग करना चाहिए और लोगों को बताना चाहिए कि जो भी चीज़ आप फेंक रहे हो उसको हम यूज करके कुछ क्रिएटिव कर सकते हैं। मैं अगर करूंगा तो पोर्ट्रेट्स को कंटिन्यू चावल के दाने पर करूंगा, क्योंकि अभी मैंने सिर्फ एक पोर्ट्रेट बनाया है। अगर मैं करता हूँ तो मैं चावल के दाने के ऊपर करूंगा जरूर।
हितेंद्र जी, आपने शायद हमारे लिए भी कुछ खास बनाया है, अब हमारे दर्शक को दिखाएंगे?
ये फेदर है, सिंपल पिजन, कबूतर का पंख है एक वाइट, उसके ऊपर मैंने ये ड्रॉ किया है सिंपल एक्रिलिक पेंटिंग से ही। एक्रिलिक कलर मैंने यूज किए हैं इसके लिए, 000 ब्रश से मैंने किया है इसको। ज्यादा टाइम तो इसको मैंने नहीं लिया है, 2 मिनट्स एंड 19 सेकेंड के टाइम में मैंने ओरिजिनल टाइम में इसको बनाया हुआ है, रियल टाइम।
क्या बात है, क्या बात है। हितेंद्र जी, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर जॉइनिंग अस। हमारी CNN न्यूज़ 18 का लोगो बनाने के लिए, अपनी स्टोरी हमारे साथ शेयर करने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, एंड गुड लक फॉर एवरीथिंग दैट यू डू फॉरवर्ड. On that note, we're going to slip into a break. Coming up on the other side, there is a battle of the bikes, and Overdrive has a verdict for you.
हर घर पाइप्स
20 points ahead of Conservatives over the last many months. That could change. Also, Labour has been winning one by-election after another, and that has been indicative of a growing and steady success for the Labour Party in those by-elections, certainly in the opinion polls. But the real polls are going to be another story, and it's going to be full swing election campaigning now on. Prime Minister Sunak announced that he had met with His Majesty King Charles and asked him to dissolve Parliament ahead of the elections. The King, of course, following protocol, accepted that, and so Parliament is now due to be dissolved. This is going to be a stage now when there will be no members of Parliament. Everyone within the Parliament who is an MP and others will be candidates contesting for the election. It's going to be hectic campaigning now over the next many weeks. The government has set its terms, the Conservative Party has set its agenda, and Prime Minister Sunak set that out briefly when he spoke outside 10 Downing Street to announce the election. He said Conservatives are the party of security, Conservatives are the party that can guarantee a future. Sunak, in fact, attacked Labour leader Keir Starmer personally. He said he's a man not to be trusted, that he was seeking his position as leader of the opposition for reasons of ambition, not for reasons of any policy or plan that he has in mind that can be implemented. Therefore, he has said that he is the one to be trusted, that the Conservatives are the party to be trusted. there have been questions, of course, about promises that Rishi Sunak made. He had set out 5 promises. The first was halving inflation, and on that score, the government has done well. Rishi Sunak clearly has done well. Inflation has come down, but at a cost, because growth has stalled. The economy has gone into recession, and that is because the interest rates have gone up. Borrowing has become difficult. Growth, therefore, is not easy. Investments are not easy. So the first achievement has come at the cost of the second. He had said that debt.
Welcome back. Let's shift gears and talk all about bikes now. The 2024 Bajaj Pulsar N250 and the Hero Charisma XMR 210 tangle in yet another showdown. A showdown that was ignited by their predecessors' bike history as well. With new age engines, cutting edge features, these rivals promise edge of the seat entertainment for their segment.
But each of these motorcycles bring their own unique charm. They're catering to distinct tastes and riding preferences. Which one would you pick? That's obviously the key question. We're going to bring you all of the design seat specifications, the details in the larger design, the features, the suspension, ride modes, and of course, the final verdict. This is Overdrive. Take a look.
Charisma and the Bajaj Pulsar. It's a rivalry that is a classic tale in India's two-wheeler history, a battle that has spanned over 2 decades. These here are their latest iterations, but before we get on with these, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your likes and comments keep us going. Both brands, through their respective models, have continually vied for dominance in the entry sports bike segment, each with a loyal fan base. The Charisma, known for its refined performance and stylish design, became an icon for a generation of riders. On the other hand, the Pulsar, with its aggressive styling and powerful performance, appealed to those seeking thrill and speed. This rivalry has pushed both Hero and Bajaj to keep innovating and elevating their offerings, constantly reshaping the preferences and the expectations of the Indian bikers, the Indian buyers. These here, like I said, are their latest iterations, the new ones that enter this fierce competition. Here we have the Hero Charisma XMR 210, and here we have the Bajaj Pulsar N250 in its updated avatar. From the design perspective, the Hero Charisma XMR and the Bajaj Pulsar N250 continue to present distinct aesthetics catering to different tastes, just the way their predecessors did. Yet again is the Charisma with the more number of plastics. In fact, this time around they've gone with a full fairing, but the design leaves very little room for crash bobbins or frame sliders. And then you have these mirrors which look good, look very sporty, but they don't really fold unless you're going to use Allen keys. So that can become a bit cumbersome while negotiating traffic, especially in the bumper-to-bumper city traffic. And when you're out on the highway, you can cut a bit of that wind resistance with an adjustable visor. But the kind of concern that I had with it when I rode it for the first time, this button does get stuck in between sometimes, now that dust has started accumulating in it. The XMR isn't your typical sport tourer like its predecessors were, and has a compact, sporty form reminiscent of the Yamaha YZF R15, which also happens to be one of its primary competitors. The twin-pot LED headlight has better throw and spread than the Pulsar, but its sophisticated design has polarized onlookers. The pedal discs add to the oomph, and the XMR, like its predecessors, manages to turn more heads, especially in this shade of yellow. The Pulsar, on the other hand, sticks to tradition. It's a sporty, naked design. Yet, at the same time, it's a big departure from the design theme that we've seen on the preceding Pulsars. The single projector beam lamp, edgy and angular styling, and the absence of a windscreen underscore its fresh approach. And on the 2024 model, they've also thrown in new graphics. If windscreens and beefier bodywork is your sort of thing, then you might have to look at the aging Pulsar 220F, which still continues to be a crowd favorite, or maybe look at the F250 sibling for this motorcycle, which too is expected to get the same kind of upgrades and updates than the N250 has received for 2024. The upside-down forks, despite their slim 37mm diameter, add more meat to the Pulsar's design, making it look more imposing. The Charisma, on the other hand, looks lean and sporty. The Charisma is slightly heavier, likely due to its additional bodywork, and surprisingly has higher seats despite its compact appearance. But long-distance comfort for the rider is better in this saddle. Both the Charisma and the N250 have split-seat designs, but the Pulsar's rear seat is notably more comfortable for larger or side-standing pillions. In terms of fit, finish and paint quality, the Pulsar N250 appears to have a slight edge, and you're likely to have lesser creaks and rattles from these pedals compared to the Charisma. Reminds me of the early 2000s all over again. Both motorcycles have USB ports that are placed conveniently for charging devices that are in your tank bag, but the arrangement on the Pulsar seems safer, with the cable less likely to tangle with the handlebar compared to that of the Charisma. The metal tank on the Pulsar also opens up a wider range of tank bag options compared to the plastic tank on the Charisma. The Charisma comes with a smart-looking instrumentation, and you can also get one with an eSIM and connected tech if you see value in it. The Pulsar, on the other hand, is still playing catch-up in this department, and the new instrumentation follows the norm with Bluetooth connectivity, telephony alerts, and turn-by-turn navigation. But as I always say, I would rather mount a phone with Google Maps for better navigation. And from that perspective, the standard handlebar on the Pulsar is more accommodating for a phone mount than the clip-ons on the Charisma. But as the points go, the Charisma scores higher in the features department for its smarter instrumentation and adjustable visor.
That has come down to an extent, but it's still running very high at close to 100% of GDP. The two other promises, that NHS waiting lists would be cut, that clearly has not happened. Sunak acknowledged that in an interview earlier this year. And then further, the last, that a stop to the small boats bringing those immigrants. The record there has been patchy. The number this year is slightly above the number last year, but the number last year was lower than in the preceding year. So a patchy record really for the Conservative government, and the patchwork is not necessarily particularly flattering for Rishi Sunak. This now is going to be an election where the Labour will have to make a very heavy swing in its favour if it is to form government. That's not necessarily going to be easy, even though it is ahead in the opinion polls. The last time the Labour Party led by Tony Blair won, it recorded a massive swing, and this time the Labour Party will have to record a swing matching that, if not better. And that is quite a big ask. Labour leaders have been conditional, they have been careful in their promises. Keir Starmer has been saying that there's a lot of work to do, and that it's not going to be some result taken for granted that Labour necessarily will win, and therefore indicating that there's work cut out for Labour in the weeks of campaigning ahead. But the campaigning is now on. The general election in Britain is now on.
Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July. This election will take place at a time when the world is more dangerous than it has been since the end of the Cold War. Putin's Russia is waging a brutal war in Ukraine and will not stop there if he succeeds. That war is...
Welcome back. It's time to shift our focus to IPL, where we are just one match away to find out our second finalist alongside Kolkata Knight Riders. Now, Rajasthan Royals ended Royal Challengers Bengaluru's 6-match winning streak. Yet another disappointment there for Kohli and the RCB fans.
That's right. Virat Kohli's wait for the IPL title continues as an all-round show from Rajasthan proved just too much for Bengaluru. So Ramya Kaushik brings you all of the updates. Take a look.
Royal Challengers Bengaluru's winning run has come to an end and the murmurs of Isala Katnamde have been faded away. Well, this time around as well, RCB fans will have to go away with that heavy heart. Obviously, the RCB fans came up in huge numbers in boiling Ahmedabad Stadium to see their favourite team RCB, because the remarkable comeback that RCB made, everybody had that hope in their heart that RCB might go to the finale stage. But unfortunately, this time around, Rajasthan Royals have ended all those hopes. Rajasthan Royals won the match by 4 wickets. Now, cricket is a funny game, isn't it? Rajasthan Royals, the team that didn't win even a single match in the month of May, aced the show when it mattered the most. Rajasthan Royals lost 4 matches on the trot and the last match was abandoned due to rain. But this time around in Ahmedabad, in eliminator match, they came up with a balanced show. First of all, they won the toss and they opted to bowl first. RCB had a decent start, especially with Virat Kohli, but when the power play ended, Yuzvendra Chahal came in and he sent back Virat Kohli. Things went downhill from that side. Now, for the 4th time in IPL 2024, Glenn Maxwell went back on a duck. And to actually keep things at a regular pace, Mahipal Lomror and Rajat Patidar came up and they played knocks off around 30 runs. But that wasn't enough. However, it helped RCB to reach that 170 plus mark. To be precise, they made 172 runs. Now, chasing a subpar total, Rajasthan Royals also started off very well. But that Sanju Samson's needless stumping and that terrific run out from Virat Kohli changed the course of the match, and it added some spice to the match. Things became interesting over there. But there was Riyan Parag. Now, he has had an electric run throughout the season, and Riyan Parag for one more time stood up tall and came up for Rajasthan Royals. He played some amazing shots and there was Shimron Hetmeyer as well. Unfortunately, both didn't stay the course. But when the time came for a runner ball, when Rajasthan Royals really needed to pull off things in just an over or so, Raman Pal came in. He played those 2 fours and then a 6 and took Rajasthan Royals to that winning line and helped Rajasthan Royals to reach to qualifier 2. Now, a lot of credit also goes to Ravichandran Ashwin for the way he bowled in the first innings. He gave away only 19 runs and took 2 crucial wickets, one of Cameron Green and one of Glenn Maxwell, and for that he became the match winner, the player of the match. But now Rajasthan Royals have a tough task. They'll have to face the Orange Army in Chennai. So it's going to be Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Rajasthan Royals in qualifier 2 in Chennai. But Sunrisers Hyderabad won't make it easy for Rajasthan Royals. The Royals slipped from the number 1 position to the 3rd and they had to fight in that eliminator round. Now it's one more time for Rajasthan to show why they were at the topmost position at the start of the IPL. It's going to be a tough show, but it's going to be an interesting one. Also, this side of us really wants to congratulate Dinesh Karthik for what he has given to the game. The game against Rajasthan Royals was his last game in international cricket, as he had earlier announced that this IPL will be his last. So the veteran deserves all the applause and all the praises. Obviously, he thanked the Ahmedabad crowd as well for cheering his name throughout the match. But thanks a lot, Dinesh Karthik, for your services in the game. Hoping to see you more behind the mic. But right now, what matters is SRH versus RR in IPL 2024 Qualifier 2. That's gonna happen in a day's time in Chennai.
India India's #1 English.
Too clear the risk to our energy security. In the Middle East, the forces of Islamist extremism threaten regional and ultimately global stability. These tensions are exploited by extremists who seek to undermine our values and divide our society here at home. China is looking to dominate the 21st century by stealing a lead in technology. And migration is being weaponized by hostile states to threaten the integrity of our borders. And these uncertain times call for a clear plan and bold action to chart a course to a secure future. You must choose in this election who has that plan, who is prepared to take the bold action necessary to secure a better future for our country and our children.
Britain will now go into a general election on Thursday, July the 4th. A surprise announcement coming from Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at 10 Downing Street right here behind. A surprise announcement because most political pundits, the opposition and government leaders had been expecting an election to be announced for the autumn of this year, but not a surprise. Over the 24 hours or so preceding the announcement, everything had been building up to it. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak clearly was consulting colleagues. The Foreign Secretary David Cameron cut short his visit to Albania. Defence Secretary Shapps cancelled a visit to Lithuania. All cabinet members were advised to necessarily attend a meeting of the cabinet at Downing Street taking place on Wednesday afternoon. This now sets the scene for an election battle with the Conservatives trailing behind the opposition Labour Party. Labour have been a fairly steady 20 points ahead of Conservatives over the last many months. That could change. Also, Labour has been winning one by-election after another, and that has been indicative of a growing and steady success for the Labour Party in those by-elections, certainly in the opinion polls. But the real polls are going to be another story. And
welcome back. Next, we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro. Money Control's a premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's start with markets now. GIFT Nifty indicates negative start for the Indian equities, and US stock markets closed lower as well as minutes of the Federal Reserve meet suggested worries over inflation. Asian equity indices are trading lower as investors feel that Fed's higher for longer approach will continue. Crude oil prices, on the other hand, fall on worries of demand taking a hit in the long term.
And we'll move on to sectors now. Subdued consumer sentiment is visible in pockets. QSR, which stands for quick service restaurants, that's one segment which is feeling the heat of this. Are they sharing and are they looking at better days with expected cool off, possibly because of inflation? That's the big question. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about India's quick service restaurant space market and other actionable insights. It's the premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights that you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control. And with that, we've got you to the end of our show. We're almost at the end of our week. Sonal, what do we have planned for tomorrow?
Well, we're not going to tell you much today, but if you are particularly in a mood of cooking, you might want to look at the right pan, and we'll get you details on that tomorrow. See you again, 8 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Swing election campaigning now on. Prime Minister Sunak announced that he had met with His Majesty King Charles and asked him to dissolve Parliament ahead of the elections. The King, of course, following protocol, accepted that, and so Parliament is now due to be dissolved. This is going to be a stage now when there will be no members of Parliament. Everyone within the Parliament who is an MP and others will be candidates contesting for the election. It's going to be hectic campaigning now over the next many weeks. The government has set its terms, the Conservative Party has set its agenda, and Prime Minister Sunak set that out briefly when he spoke outside 10 Downing Street to announce the election. He said Conservatives are the party of security, Conservatives are the party that can guarantee a future. Sunak, in fact, attacked Labour leader Keir Starmer personally. He said he's a man not to be trusted, that he was seeking his position as leader of the opposition for reasons of ambition, not for reasons of any policy or plan that he has in mind that can be implemented. Therefore, he has said that he is the one to be trusted, that the Conservatives are the party to be trusted. There have been questions, of course, about promises that Rishi Sunak made. He had set out 5 promises. The first was halving inflation, and on that score the government has done well. Rishi Sunak clearly has done well. Inflation has come down, but at a cost, because growth has stalled. The economy has gone into recession, and that is because the interest rates have gone up, borrowing has become difficult, growth therefore is not easy, investments are not easy. So the first achievement has come at the cost of the second. He had said that debt will come down, that has come down.
A very good morning to all our viewers. You're watching the morning news on CNN News 18. I am Anjali Pandey, here to take you through all the latest news and updates from across the nation and around the world. And our top focus of this hour is on the OBC quota face-off. Now, in a massive setback to the Mamata Banerjee government in West Bengal, the Calcutta High Court cancelled all OBC certificates issued by the state government between the period 2011 to 2024. The court directed that a fresh list of OBCs be prepared based on the West Bengal Commission for Backward Classes Act of 1993. Now, the employment provided on the basis of old certificates will, however, continue to remain valid. The Calcutta High Court's order has led to the cancellation of over 5 lakh OBC certificates. Now, reacting to the High Court's order, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has alleged BJP's conspiracy and has also decided to move to the apex court. Now, Prime Minister Modi also reacted to the High Court's statement and, in fact, High Court's order on the OBC quota, and said that the verdict is a tight slap on India Bloc and TMC's face for engaging in appeasement politics. Several leaders of the BJP have also taken a dig at Mamata Banerjee, calling it a setback for appeasement politics.
कोलकाता हाई कोर्ट ने इस इंडी अलायंस को एक बहुत बड़ा तमाचा मारा है। कोर्ट ने 2010 के बाद से जारी सारे ओबीसी सर्टिफिकेट कैंसिल कर दिया है। क्यों? ये इसलिए किया गया क्योंकि पश्चिम बंगाल की सरकार ने मुसलमानों का वोट बैंक के लिए अनाप शनाप मुसलमानों को ओबीसी बनाने के सर्टिफिकेट दे दिए थे। ये वोट बैंक की राजनीति, ये तुष्टीकरण की राजनीति, ये तुष्टीकरण की सनक हर पार कर रही है।
নিতে চায় আমরা কাটতে দেব না, সংখ্যালঘুদের ওবিসি রিজার্ভেশন কেড়ে নিতে চায় আমরা কাটতে দেব না, ওরা আদিবাসীদের অস্তিত্ব কেড়ে নিতে চায় আমরা কাটতে দেব না, ওরা ইকোনমিক ব্যাকওয়ার্ড ক্লাস আমার এখানে তাও আছে তাদেরও আমি সম্মান দিই।
ममता जी ने कहा हम हाईकोर्ट के फैसले को नहीं मानते। मैं बंगाल की जनता को पूछना चाहता हूं, कोई ऐसी मुख्यमंत्री हो सकती है, संवैधानिक पद पर बैठी हुई कोई व्यक्ति ऐसी हो सकती है जो कहेगी कि हम कोर्ट के आदेश को नहीं मानते हैं? किस प्रकार की मानसिकता से बंगाल का लोकतंत्र गुजर रहा है? मैं इसकी घोर निंदा करता हूं और हाईकोर्ट के फैसले का स्वागत करता हूं और हमें सुनिश्चित करेंगे कि हाईकोर्ट के फैसले का अमल हो और जिनका अधिकार है, जो पिछड़े लोग हैं, पिछड़ा वर्ग के लोग हैं, उनको अपना अधिकार मिले, न कि एपीसमेंट की पॉलिसी और वोट बैंक की पॉलिसी के कारण जो पिछड़े नहीं हैं उनको रिजर्वेशन का फायदा मिले।
आज के কলকাতা হাইকোর্টের দুজন বিচারপতির বেঞ্চ ওবিসি রিজার্ভেশন তুলে দিয়েছে, প্রায় সব কাস্ট সার্টিফিকেট বাতিল করে দিয়েছে। ক্ষমতায় আসার আগে যারা এই রূপ দেখাচ্ছে যদি আবার ক্ষমতায় আসে কি হবে খালি ভেবে দেখুন। আমি আপনাদের বলবো যে মায়েরা ভাইরা কুর্মী আদিবাসী ভূমিজ থেকে শুরু করে মুন্ডা ওরাও যারা রয়েছেন সাঁওতাল থেকে শুরু করে সবাইকে মাথায় রাখতে হবে এই ভারতীয় জনতা পার্টিকে একটা ভোট দেওয়া মানে আপনার অধিকার থেকে আপনি আগামী দিন বঞ্চিত থাকবেন।
एकदम ठीक किया है क्योंकि आज ओबीसी कैटेगरी में ममता बनर्जी मुसलमान लोगों को घुसाए हैं। ओबीसी कैटेगरी में जिसको घुसाना है उसको ना घुसा के कंप्लीट तो तुष्टिकरण का राजनीति करने के लिए अपीसमेंट पॉलिटिक्स करने के लिए बांग्लादेश से जो इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स जो इलीगल इमिग्रेंट्स जो है उसको घुसा दिया जा रहा है। रोहिंग्या को पश्चिम बंगाल में घुसा दिया जा रहा है और घुसाकर उसको आधार कार्ड वोटर कार्ड दे दिया जा रहा है और ओबीसी का कैटेगरी में घुसा भी दे रहा है ताकि उनको संरक्षण मिले। तो जो आज अदालत ने किया है एकदम ठीक किया है। जबरदस्त धक्का मिला है ममता बनर्जी का सरकार को, हम लोग बहुत खुश है।
ममता बनर्जी आज हमारा पार्टी का सुप्रीमो स्टेट बोल दिया कि ये हम लोग नहीं मान रहे, इसके खिलाफ जहाँ तक जाना पड़ेगा हम लोग जाएंगे। और इससे ये साबुत होता है कि ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी जो है वो पिछले वर्ग का आदमी का खिलाफ है। वो एंटी एससी, एंटी एसटी, एंटी ओबीसी है। और ये अगर ये तीसरी बार सत्ता में आ गया तो सबका सब कुछ छीन लेगा। और इसीलिए ममता बनर्जी का ही है कि हम लोग यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड के बारे में जो हम लोग का अपोजिशन है यही वो वजह है।
And CNN News 18's editor is Kamalika Sen-Gupta is joining us on this story. Kamalika, help us understand why exactly did the Calcutta High Court dismiss all the OBC certificates issued after 2011 till 2024?
See, in 1993, there was this recommendation of forming backward class commission in each and every state. And backward class commission was also present there in West Bengal. Now, after 2000, below 2000, before 2011, there were near about 40 communities which was inside this OBC category. Now, when Mamata Banerjee came in power after 2011, she came up with a new law of identifying the OBC and giving them OBC status. Now, there were PILs which claimed that this law through which this OBC quota system was decided is not in accordance to what direction was given in 1993. What was the direction? The direction was that every state government will consult with this backward class commission. They will identify it, and then the OBC list will be OBC, the category, the parameters, or who all will be the OBC, that will be decided. Now, here another angle is that there is a jump of OBC communities from 40 to almost 160 after 2011. And out of those, almost 140 communities that were included new are all the minority communities. So this PIL was, the PIL, 4th PIL was lodged, 2021 PIL was lodged, where they challenged that it should be based on the basis of economy, not on the basis of other things. And in that case, court came up with an order yesterday where they stated that the OBC certificates from 2011 to 2024 will be null and void. But the people who have got jobs showing this OBC certificate, their job will not go. But since yesterday, those OBC certificates will have no value for any other work.
All right, Kamalika, thank you so much for giving us that context on the OBC quota face-off that is ongoing in West Bengal. Now let's listen in to what the petitioner said while speaking to CNN News 18.
What led you actually, file this case, and when? If you can tell the background.
The thing is that our NGO is a human rights organization. Atmadeep is a human rights organization. And our tagline is operation of no one, appeasement of no one. So that's why when we came to know about this particular act, which was passed in 2012, it was in the public domain throughout that period. everybody criticized that act, that discrimination on the basis of religious identity, but nobody really took the initiative to quash that thing. So we thought we should take some initiative. So we approached the court through a PIL, public interest litigation, in 2020. In the October 2020, we filed the case, and later we found there are some other petition as well, but those petitions were not in the appellate side. Those were in the original side of the Kolkata High Court. So there are 3 other petitions as well. So we filed on the appellate side, asking the court to quash the particular act, that is West Bengal other backward classes other than Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Act. So we believe that any reservation, be it for the OBCs, should be on the basis of their financial or economic condition, not on the basis of religious identity. But here, in this particular case, what we saw, that reservation has been made on the basis of their titles, or that is religious identity. If you go through the chart, you can find that almost 98% people in OBCA are from a particular community, that is Muslims.
Now, without knowing the details, I can't comment on that. But I'm very sure that the reservation and the rights according to that cannot be nullified by anybody.
And CNN News 18 also spoke with the chairperson of the National Commission for Backward Classes, Hansraj Gangaram Ahir, over the OBC quota row in West Bengal. Take a look at what he had to say.
सबसे पहले आज के जजमेंट के बारे में आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जो गाइडलाइन है 1990-92 में जो दी थी इंदिरा साहनी केस में, उसका यहाँ पालन करना पड़ता है। उसके गाइडलाइन है, उसके पैरामीटर्स है, कौन ओबीसी है, तो उसका पालन नहीं होने के बाद हाई कोर्ट ने मानी है और इसीलिए वो खारिज किया है। इसी बात को लेकर मैं 2023 से राज्य सरकार से बात करता था, लिखता था, पत्राचार करता था। मैंने भी ये बात बताई थी कि 179 जातियों में से 118 जातियां मुस्लिमों की कैसे बन सकती है, जबकि हिंदू बहुल है वहाँ पे पश्चिम बंगाल। तो कई प्रश्न तो थे हमारे आयोग में भी, लेकिन आयोग को भी उन्होंने तरीके से आज तक रिप्लाई नहीं दिया और रिपोर्ट नहीं दी कि इन लोगों को हमने ओबीसी में क्यों जोड़ा है। और 2011 के बाद 71 जातियां जोड़ी गई हैं ओबीसी में। पहले 108 जातियां थी, बाद में उसको 179 की गई है। ये 71 में से 65 जातियां मुस्लिम भाइयों की थी और 6 जातियां हिंदू भाइयों की थी। इसमें भी नियम है, इसके पैरामीटर्स है, कौन से आधार पर जोड़ रहे हैं। तो ये उन्होंने आयोग को आज तक दिया नहीं था। वही हाई कोर्ट में बात हो गई, हाई कोर्ट ने उन्हें रिप्लाई बराबर नहीं दिया होगा और ऐसे डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं दिए होंगे, रिपोर्ट नहीं दिया होगा, तो खारिज हो गए। सभी जातियां खारिज हो गई, ओबीसी सर्टिफिकेट खारिज हो गए। और मैं ये मानता हूँ ये हाई कोर्ट का जो निर्णय है ये मूल ओबीसी को न्याय देने वाला है। जो लूटपाट चल रही थी ओबीसी आरक्षण की, उसमें रोक लग गई है और इस तरीके से हाई कोर्ट का निर्णय का हम स्वागत करते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि जितने भी मूल ओबीसी है उनकी एजुकेशन में, हायर एजुकेशन में, नौकर भर्ती में, रिक्रूटमेंट में जो नुकसान हुआ था वो आगे होगा नहीं।
पर ममता बंदोपाध्याय जो मुख्यमंत्री हैं वो कह रही हैं कि ये बीजेपी, पीएम मोदी और कोर्ट का पूरा खेल है, एजेंडा है उनका।
नहीं, देखिए, मैं हाई कोर्ट का बहुत आदर करता हूँ, सम्मान करता हूँ, विश्वास रखता हूँ। हम आयोग के माध्यम से मैं निर्णय का स्वागत इसलिए करता हूँ कि संविधान में हाई कोर्ट का एक स्तर दिया हुआ है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का एक स्तर है, उनके गरिमा है, उनके निर्णय को मानना ही पड़ता है पब्लिकली। अगर आपको उसके खिलाफ में जाना है तो आपको अगले कोर्ट होते हैं
जी, लेकिन
पब्लिकली हाई कोर्ट के निर्णय का अपमान करने का अधिकार ये देश के 140 करोड़ जनता को नहीं है। संविधान का अपमान है, मैं मानता हूँ। तो किसी ने भी ये बात नहीं कहना है। मुझे लगता नहीं कि यहाँ की मुख्यमंत्री ने क्या कहा है, मैंने सुना नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मैं इतना जरूर कहता हूँ कि कभी भी हाई कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय का अपमान ना हो। इसमें संविधान का सम्मान होगा, अपमान नहीं होगा।
And we have some breaking news coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has responded to Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's recent remarks, in which Rahul Gandhi mentioned the existence of a systematic bias against lower castes since his family was in power. Now, Prime Minister Modi said